Sereia sentimental, dentro da sua boca é feriado mundial. Sereia, será que o canto da sua carne ainda me mata em alto mar? Me leva longe, amor, me beija fundo, alma da língua, amor, sotaque, toque do mais louco tambor. Sentimental, perto do seu peito mora o pacto original. Sereia, será que a tal ordem vigente despedaça o seu sinal? Me ama torto, amor, me ama muito. Gosto da fruta, amor, gosto da onda que me leva sem rancor.
Amorinha, se tu vivesse sozinha, iria já agorinha levar-me em buquê de flor, dizer das coisas de telenovela, as mesmas que disse aquela que deixei ou me deixou. Amorinha, se tu vivesse sozinha, iria já agorinha levar-me em buquê de flor, dizer das coisas de telenovela, as mesmas que disse aquela que deixei ou me deixou. Amores vãos vêm na paz, não fazem mal a ninguém. Se me amas mansamente, Amorinha, te amo também. Amores vãos vêm também.
You're listening to WRFL Lexington.
The following program contains views, ideas, and opinions that have been produced by the host DJ and their guests and are not reflective of the views of WRFL or its underwriters. For questions, comments, or concerns, please email programming at wrfl.fm.
This has been a scheduled test of the emergency alert system. In the case of an actual emergency, the announcement you just...
No. This is not an emergency. That was meant to tell you all of the wonders of Leestown coffee. But apparently I pressed the wrong button. In any case, hello everyone. This is Radio Free Eskippakithiki. I'm covering for a rather prestigious show called Trivial Thursdays. Which I was not aware of when I signed up for this time slot. So, upon research, it's a pretty good show, and I bet you a lot of people are actually tuning in right now, expecting to be listening to it. So I felt like I had to do something a little bit more in keeping with what you all want, instead of what I usually do, which is... well, it'll probably bleed out as we go along. But in any case, I'll play some music for you, and we'll just try to have a nice day without your regularly scheduled program. My name is Geoff. Please feel free to call at 859-257-WRFL. We are manning the phones, and if you have any requests or anything you want to talk about, mention it to me. Talk to you soon.
Watching tumbleweeds roll by, bright rainbows WRFL's programming is made possible in part by Leestown Coffee House. Leestown Coffee House offers ecologically friendly and locally sourced coffee, tea, and pastries for dine-in or drive-thru. Leestown Coffee House is located at 1416 Leestown Road and can be reached at 859-554-5900. WRFL thanks Leestown Coffee House for supporting college radio.
3 cheers for coffee, but what's that noise? Oh, it's coming from the computer. The computer shouldn't make that noise. Stop that and make this noise instead.
Right now, we're gonna get together.
Why'd the music stop? Boy, this day is filled with mysteries. Hello, Charles. My friend Charles is in the studios. This is all very impromptu.
How's it going, everybody?
There it is. Oh my God, what's happening to my song? Life is just so very strange. Charles, tell them about the libertarian thing real fast. About the meeting you're going to have, and I will fix the noises that the computer make.
Hello, what's going on, UK? I'm Charles Altendorf. I'm with the campus libertarians and with the state libertarians. My position will be changing tonight, probably, but...
Oh, what's happening tonight?
Oh, we're having our state XCOM meeting, and we have to shift a few positions around.
What is XCOM? You all always say that. And
Executive Committee, so it's basically the people who run the party on the state level. So
you're going to change positions tonight?
Yeah, because we had a resignation, so we have to fill the resignation.
Who resigned?
A Mr. James Toller.
Really?
Yes.
What should I ask?
It'll come to light soon.
Well, Mr. Toller was the nominee for the 62nd State House, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So what happens with that?
Well, he's still on the ballot, so you could still vote for him. I'm not necessarily opposed to that. We had a similar situation happen with Frank Harris last cycle as well.
Really?
So
yeah, I suppose so.
So I just attract these situations, apparently, Geoff.
Well, we are the ones that choose to get involved with these wild people. James is a nice guy. I'm sorry that whatever happened isn't working out.
But that's okay. Like I said, you could still vote for him. It's not like it's going to change on the ballot. That's why
he's running against a Republican, right?
Yes, he is running against a Republican with no Democrat challenger.
Yeah.
So,
full disclosure, I'm a Democrat, and I tried really hard to get James on the ballot. I'm very sorry he came off because, well, I mean, this show. Do you know this show?
I don't know this show. What is this show?
This is It's called Trivial Thursdays, but I looked it up. This guy is the fellow who does it does all these great interviews like constantly.
Oh.
But he seems very much on the Democratic side of things.
Well, he should be excited. I saw a state rep out there campaigning when I walked over here.
Which one?
So, I think Swain or whatever.
Swain, yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah. So, there you go.
Well, good luck.
Good luck to him. I'm sure it's probably a slam dunk.
Anyway, so yeah, but the reason I mentioned that is because I suppose it's okay to say that, like, I sort of wanted James to run because there was no Democrat in that race, and I wanted people in northern Georgetown to have some sort of option.
Well, and James is still on the ballot, and I think it's fine if you vote for him. I don't have any ill will towards James. I've been in this scenario now 3 times. Well, twice with a candidate dropping, but... Mm-hmm. Like I said, that's what's weird about sort of trying to do that mid-cycle that I try to impress upon people is there's no way to change the paperwork, so you might as well just stay until it's over.
I'd run into that too. I mean, I hope they don't feel called out by this, but there's a lady named Pat Banks in Winchester who didn't want. She thought about running in 2020, and she's marvelous. She absolutely should have run, and she didn't want to because her knees hurt and she couldn't do the door-to-door. Well, as it turns out, nobody could do any door-to-door in 2020.
So there you go.
Yeah, so I mean, she probably would have won, and she would have done a good job.
I am excited though. We did get the release from Lancaster for the city council race, and there were 6 candidates on the ballot, and there's 6 open slots. So that means my friend will get elected no matter what happens.
Wait, which friend?
His name's Brandon McGlone. So he'll be on the city. Ooh, we got a call.
Somebody's calling. They hung up.
Oh!
It is that kind of day. I officially declare it that kind of day. I don't know who you are or where you are. You're listening to this. I don't know if you're a DoorDash driver or if you're sitting at home really expecting to hear from some very serious professionals that work for the Lexington Health Department or whatnot. But it is that kind of day. I've had a day already, and I've barely been awake for 2 hours. So anyway, let's play a theme song to this day, if the computer lets us. Now, those of you who recognize this will be very impressed. I'm promising you that.
This is love, so we'll survive. 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 This is love. This is love, so we'll survive.
Well, that thing that I'm playing isn't playing.
It's one of those days.
I'm just going to leap right. I'm going to embrace the madness of the universe. And Charles, you get to hear this first.
All right.
I'm actually the bassist on this song. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you can hear it. Okay, here we go. It's going to take 3 seconds, y'all. First, you'll hear some silence. We're going to do that again. Oh, my God. I'm just accepting that this is just the way fate is going to go today. Okay. Now, this time, for real, you get to hear it. Are you not going to The computer is literally just going out. That's what's happening. There's some sort of connection problem with the computer, and it's going out. Wildness. We should really just, I guess this is just the universe's way of saying that we should just do what we're actually good at, which is just talk about local politics, right?
Apparently. We'll have to call the WRFL IT. Ooh, we were dead air.
We were dead air that whole time.
Yep. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Again. My God, I am really, not doing my best as a DJ today. So I guess we should recap on what we just did there. So we found out the computer didn't work, and then we discussed the fact that there was no one we could call. And
So now you're stuck with us.
yeah, and then we went, well, okay, we might as well do what we're actually good at, which is talk about politics, which is exactly where we'd gotten to. So we had mentioned that, I think we're talking about the Senate race, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about it is, I think everybody pretty much knows how this race is going to go. It's always
Do they?
been-
I think it's more up in the air than it was, and you know why?
Why is that?
This is a wild year. Anyone who says they can predict this year, they're telling you right off they can't be trusted because they think they have psychic powers. Nobody knows what's going to happen this year. In the race between World War III and Roe v. Wade, there is no current winner. So,
I suppose.
yeah.
I don't know. It just, so seeing Rand Paul with the ad, in support of banning transgender athletes, and then on the heels of what Booker did with his ad with the noose thing.
Yeah, but it was a race to the bottom that I wasn't expecting Rand Paul to win.
That's my thing. Like, I
really-
thought the high road is usually what you take in those type, and that's kind of with the Conway thing when he first ran, Rand Paul didn't really dive as far down into the gutter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is nothing to be proud of. I mean, I saw his wife speak at Fancy Farm, and there's one transgender student in Kentucky, right?
I don't know. I have no idea. I know.
I think there's
some.
like not student, but I mean athlete. There's one
Okay.
transgender athlete. I looked it up. A little while
I
ago.
didn't know that.
They were in Henderson, and they helped their friend start a lacrosse team.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, I swear to God, every single Republican at Fancy Farm talked about her. Talked about transgender athletes.
That's, I have an expression I use with my Canadian friends when I talk to them about how they feel about America.
Yeah.
I say we live rent-free in their head. Well, clearly.
Yeah. All you got to do is start a lacrosse team, and you are famous in the wrong way forever. So, I mean, I think that this is all a massive distraction. I think it's really disingenuous.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're avoiding the issues. The things that people in Kentucky care about. And, that's it's unfortunate because I think Kentuckians really are looking for some change, actually. I found out the other day, I'm friends with Julie Cantwell from Kentuckians for Medical Marijuana.
Yeah, yeah.
And, she put out her, I don't know what you call it, her candidate survey of everyone and their opinions on the medical marijuana bills. And I found out that my state representative in Woodford County, Dan Pfister, is against medical marijuana. And how would I have known that if Julie hadn't done the work? I mean, nobody put it in the frickin' paper. Nobody put it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's actually an important
why would
issue.
you publicize a point like? Well, I mean, there have been some there have been straw polls and there have been official polls.
Right.
The straw polls are coming back 99% in favor. The official polls are coming back like 90% in favor.
Right.
It's mind-boggling that we are so far from control of our own government that these people who hold really strange and retrograde ideas get into power.
So yeah, that's sort of my thought on that. So instead, the Republicans are going out here and talking about that thing, which again, like we said before, when we were in dead air, I do think there is a discussion to be sort of had there, in particular because Title IX was intended to sort of help more women get, I think, scholarships for athletics.
Well, I'm going to push back on you there on ideological grounds because, Mr. Altendorf, you're a libertarian, and I strongly feel that there is no place for the government in children's sports.
I will say, I will parlay on that though. I have never once advocated for a bill of any sort. I think that is up to the governing body of the sport rather than a bunch of politicians.
Yeah. Tell the NBA or whoever it is
Yeah.
that cares about sports. I don't understand why the party of small government is massively concerned about this.
Well,
one
the
kid.
Republicans aren't really the party of small government.
No, they're socialists.
So,
By the way,
yeah.
I don't know have you heard of MAGA communism?
Yes, this is really funny you brought this up.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't heard of MAGA communism, and then I saw something from a thread where actually our one of our people in the LPKY told me about this person that existed, and I had no idea what this was, so I went and looked into it, and I was just like, well, that's interesting.
That's a thing.
That's an interesting. I mean, I can't say I'm totally surprised, right? I mean, that is. Some of that, some of those type of people, exist. When I was in Bloomington, actually, there was
What type of people?
There was a party that called itself the Traditionalist Workers Party, and they sort of had a particular reputation.
So there are antecedents to this. I really just see this as like some dude was sitting in his house just like pushing words together, like bzzzt. Oh, phone.
Finally someone calling in.
Somebody was calling about our phone book listing. That was very strange and possibly
wow.
from the 80s. Anyway, yeah, so MAGA communism is a thing, and it's fascinating.
I don't imagine it's a very large, encompassing thing.
I don't know.
It's really hard to tell these days with the internet, though.
Yeah.
I will grant you that.
I mean, with the extremely online these days, they go their own way.
Yeah.
But the fact that it causes such enormous synaptic collisions, I think, really gives it value in itself. Like, it's worth discussing just because it's worth sitting there and thinking about, like, how could MAGA and communism work together?
Well, I mean, in theory, there's been different sects that I would call socialist or communist in America for a long time.
Yeah, the Republicans are socialists.
I mean, if we reach back, I'm originally from Wisconsin, so Milwaukee's had socialist mayors,
Yeah.
So there's definitely been a group of those people, but that is sort of very juxtaposed to what the original impetus was beyond the MAGA movement, which I think was a sort of an evolution from factions of the Tea Party movement. But,
Yeah, it might be. There seems to be there's a certain thread through.
Yeah.
And I was listening to them talk for a while yesterday, and they feel that Occupy was a massive disappointment because it spurned the Tea Party movement. And I was like, we did sort of spurn the Tea Party movement, didn't we? Yeah, we really did. And I remember one particular case down in Austin where we were like, there was this black lady who was dressed up like the Statue of Liberty that showed up for a Tea Party protest, and she was all in on them. And I was hanging out with a bunch of people who started calling her racist. And I was like, this doesn't sit right somehow. This doesn't seem, especially because like it was just a bunch of white kids in coffee shops who thought this black woman was racist because of her friends. And I was like, I'm not sold on this somehow. I feel like there's been a mistake being made. And now 12 years later, like, okay, all right, well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a friend in Canada. Granted, they're not American, but when we first started talking, he was very much like, I'm a socialist, and I'm okay, but I'm a little bit concerned about the direction of these identity politics and where they're heading. He's part Indian, part Italian by descent.
Yeah.
And over time, his views have kind of morphed in a way where he's like, I want to bring about Catholic socialism in my country. And
okay, there is such a thing. I can imagine that without too much effort. It's sort of a Latin American thing. It's very pro-life, pro-poverty, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So
okay.
I think this MAGA communism is sort of a similar thing where there are people that want conservative social values, but also want full-blown state-run things.
Yeah, and that's where I can't vibe with them at all. They really are very socially conservative, and they are anti-trans.
And I'm just not sure how that. I mean, traditionally, I don't think that's really worked out very well in Western countries. Now, like you said, in Latin America, we've seen some of that, but then you get into the issue where there's definitely classism around race in a lot of those countries.
Yeah.
I mean, to an extent that's far beyond here,
But it's the value of just making me re-examine where these ideas come from is sort of interesting. Like, I keep calling Republicans socialists, but it's literally true,
I mean,
right?
it's true. Yeah. I would argue that really that my party is probably the only party in most of the Western world that leans particularly capitalist.
I would agree with what? I think that the Democrat, I think we've mentioned this before, but I like the Democratic approach to capitalism in some ways.
Right.
I think, honestly, in a lot of ways, I think that's actually where I get along best with the Democrats, to the extent that I believe in economics at all. But I would agree that you're part of the only capitalist party. Right. When I say the Republicans are socialist, like, I mean literally, like, Karl Marx was one of the founders of the Republican Party, and it's totally true. I mean, you can look it up yourself. Karl Marx was really good friends with Charles Henry Dana, the guy who ran the New York Tribune, which was the house organ of the Republican Party, and he would write Charles Dana long letters with his opinions on American politics, and Dana would run them on the front page of the Tribune with his name cut off. And people like Abraham Lincoln corresponded regularly with Marx. He was the main European commentator on the American Civil War. And what I find really interesting about all this is that I don't know, I can't track exactly when the Republicans started to pretend they weren't socialist, like when they demanded not talking about it. I think they sort of diverged separately because all the stuff with Marx writing Capital came after that.
Right. Well, I mean, if you look traditionally at the history, there's been, I think the best era to really look at the divide that existed is when Grover Cleveland was president, or even Chester Arthur, for example.
If you know anything about that era, please tell me. 'Cause I am lost.
So this is late 1800s, and they call it the forgettable presidents.
Okay.
But what happened is you did have this traditional divide that sort of formed because, a lot of people who were previously Whigs joined the Republican Party, and the Whigs were probably more so leaned capitalist. But so you would have like these big money, old school, almost robber barons practically would be in the party, but then you would also simultaneously have people spouting extremely populist rhetoric, and what would always happen is there'd be this inevitable divide, and because of what I think happened because the Republicans were mostly seen as the party that won the Civil War.
Well, they were.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
they were.
So you just had like a vast majority, but you didn't really have a coherent leadership. So you'd see inevitably like there was huge fights between Grover Cleveland and the rest of the party, Teddy Roosevelt and the rest of the party. And I think there's just always been some robber barons that are higher ups, but I don't think that's really translated down very often. I mean, we probably saw it translated down probably a little bit more in the past couple decades, but now I think, honestly, we may just be seeing the Republican Party reverting back to its roots, where you got, a few capitalist leaders and a bunch of people espousing populist rhetoric at the bottom.
Well, the Republican Party began as an alliance between Northern industrialists and Northern working class or working poor.
Right.
What do you think about the phrase working class?
I don't mind it. I think sometimes it gets abused, but I think it doesn't get abused as bad as other terms. I do.
Oh yeah.
I do believe there is a group of people who are the working class, and I do believe that I do believe that there should be I think they should be helped. I mean, I think that they should have opportunities. It's just I disagree often with socialists on how to bring about those opportunities for them.
Yeah, that's one of my problems with it is working class is sort of a socialist phrase, and it's one that MAGA communism like centers themselves around. Like they talk about the working class constantly, but I look around and I'm like, we all work.
Right. Well, and that's where you start running into the problem, right? Because in my opinion, whereas people who are really staunchly, I don't even know how to describe them, but like you see it on the right and the left. Well, on the R's and the D's. I don't really like using terms right and left anymore.
No, me neither. Yeah.
But you see, they get to this cycle where they're like, it's like some kind of, my friend actually from Eastern Kentucky, who's very anti-J.D. Vance, he has a good way of phrasing it where he said it's basically like poverty porn. Like it's a race to the bottom of people who can like look at and say, oh, this person is working and struggling harder than this person. And we're going to point them out and make them the poster child of whatever. Whereas, like they're trying to sow a divide between someone like me who works and is somewhat comfortable and someone who works and may not be as comfortable as me. Right. And you know, I mean, I care. I go to church. I donate money. I help people. We send gift baskets to people. You know, it's not like
we're in the same we're in the same state as you know. And I mean, I'm sure economically you're like technically more viable than I am, but like we're all in the same boat where we all work constantly.
Right.
None of us can afford healthcare or anything. Like some of us get slightly more status symbols than others, but like when we talk, so much breath has been wasted on trying to figure out how to describe Trump supporters, and they are poor as a general rule, but they're also sort of like often top level in their little town. Like,
well, actually, my grandmother, rest in peace, is probably the perfect character. Yeah, she was a big Trump supporter, but she was divorced when my grandmother was 8, remarried, but a very stout evangelical. Goes to church, or went to church. Watched a lot of televangelists, which I made fun of her for doing that a lot. And then she ran an alternative medicine store since the 80s. Yeah. And she was very anti-vaccine and, you know, anti-big pharma. And she saw Trump as like some golden savior that was going to, you know, shake everything up and change America. And I think she is pretty much the caricature of what, you know, a Trump supporter is. And unfortunately, that kind of caricature, I think, is inconvenient for the mainstream press.
Yeah, they want to name him as all one thing or another.
Right.
And I think one thing that MAGA communism has latched onto, we can talk about, I don't see politics as a spectrum. I see it as a zoo. I see it as a menagerie.
It's kind of become a zoo, honestly.
Yeah, there's a barnyard with a lot of different animals. And you and I feel no difficulty discussing MAGA communism because it has nothing to do with us. Like, we might as well be discussing things on Mars and the moon. Like, this is just something, I'm not a communist. I'm not exactly a capitalist because I don't have any money. Right. But I'm definitely...
No, I definitely wouldn't put you in the communist scale.
Yeah.
You know?
It's an accusation that would not really work on me. So, but so these folks, they're very clever. I'm very impressed. They figured out that Trump voters, well, I mean, and they believe that MAGA is bigger than Trump, which is just a hard thing for me to...
You know, I mean, again, this gets back to that original discussion. It's alternating views on what you view as the traditional America almost, right? Like, and that's where I sort of run into a lot of problems with my European and Canadian friends when we discuss politics, because when they view America, you know, they either view they view it purely as like an Obama America or a Bush America. Yeah. And I have to correct them constantly and say, it's so much more complicated than that. Like, you know, so
it's not the melting pot, it's the boiling pot.
So these MAGA communists, clearly, they're just trying to reset the history scales and promote sort of what they see as the 1930s view of America. Whereas the traditional MAGA people sort of see America in the 1950s spectrum, right?
That's a really good point, yeah.
So
you're right, they are sort of trying to replay about 100 years ago here, aren't they?
Yeah, so that's what's going on here, and it's interesting. I mean, I minored in history and I majored in geography here at UK, so I see the mild history in it. I think, unfortunately, though, you know, you're never going to get a majority consensus, and maybe that's okay, you know, like it's okay that America's big, you know, and there's different views about how the history was or whatever. But if you're a communist, I guess that's not okay because you want everybody to eventually adopt their view.
Yeah, they're trying to backronym it. Well, we keep hitting on various different things, but the reason I mentioned that was like one thing I think they figured out is they figured out the poor like being called the working class.
Right. Yeah, they do.
They enjoy that. That sounds good to them. Mm-hmm. Whereas for me, it's about poverty.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a big difference between somebody, you know, who, you know, like I said, I own a house. You know, I'm not really on the same level as somebody who's struggling to make a rent down the street from us here.
Everybody whose rent doubled in the last year is in a very different boat than we are, and it is like, I
was renting previously by my house, but part of the reason also I stepped on the gas pedal to lock it down was because I was like, I'm going to lock down interest rates while they're 2.3 because it's never going to stay this way, and I don't know, it's unfortunate. It really is, because clearly, whether you're a socialist or a libertarian or a capitalist or whatever, I think everyone can agree that our government is causing issues to the market. They're manipulating it, and they don't care that it affects them and they don't care about it because it doesn't affect them and their friends until they get slapped in the face when something does.
Well, now we're facing systemic disaster. I mean, I hope that's not too. I hope that's not too spicy for the audience of Trivia Thursday,
for the middle time slot. But I mean, so I don't. So when sort of reverting back to what I'm saying with Rand Paul and Booker, I was a little bit disappointed in both of them. Actually.
Both of them, honestly, because
I thought they were kind of above some of that. Honestly,
I wanted a race on the issues,
right?
And they're.
I mean, we were almost billed with this was going to be a libertarian socialist debate. We never get it.
Yeah.
We never get it. Just like they said Trump and Bernie would do that, and we never got that either. Not to say I don't believe Trump's really a libertarian, but anyway.
No, Trump is amorphous. He's hard to describe.
But we didn't get the libertarian socialist debate. Instead, we got the same sort of, I guess the term dog whistle gets overused, but we got dog whistles.
Competing dog whistles to see who could dog whistle the loudest.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's only limited time, and you want to criticize both here. But I thought the news commercial was risible, to be honest, because
I had several black friends that were offended by that commercial.
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on this earlier, but all of us with the sort of like the ambiguous post-melting pot American ethnicity have had issues for a while, and we never like talk about them because it's rude to talk about them because only really wants to talk about a few things, but like then important things get left out. Like, for example, Geoff Young's descended from Ukrainian Jews.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. He didn't tell me that. But
no, he never tells anybody.
Yeah.
But that's directly relevant.
Yeah, that's very important, and that would be, why he has issues with the current government of Ukraine.
There is an explanation there, to a certain degree. Yeah. I think that, but anyway, so we tend to eschew discussing things in such a way just because we're older, and it just feels rude to us. And so I like one wants to just let Charles do whatever you want to, and then one also wants to say, like, we're trying to win an election and you are trying to solve a problem that was solved 50 years ago by accusing the guy who did the thing that you wanted him to do of not doing anything.
Yeah.
And then it just looks really bad.
Yeah.
And I feel I didn't say anything about that for months. I mean, I was silent as the grave on that. And then Rand Paul comes out and does something even worse.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. Because, I mean, it's hard to tell what Kentucky wants, but in my opinion, Kentucky does not care for cowards.
No.
And skipping a debate to release a commercial that shows you hiding behind a bunch of cops.
That was odd, too. That was very odd.
Yeah.
And and we'll see. I'm sure Andy Barr is going to skip.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely skipping
He's going to skip Geoff Young, and... I think the Republicans they're doing their skipping tactic this cycle, and
they skipped the
and they skipped our debate with Brad Barron and Amy McGrath.
Yeah,
and I don't know. Eventually, you think it would suffer them some consequences. Maybe not this cycle, but possibly soon. I don't know.
Maybe we've just out-evolved debates. Like maybe when you come right down to it, it's like a debate is as good as 2, maybe 3 commercials, and if you have the money to just do commercials. I'm scared to think that's the case, but
I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Like you said, the Kentucky voter is an interesting animal because I definitely think that they are kind of like me, inherently skeptical of the machine that is Washington, but they definitely don't seem to always agree with the solutions I would have for it.
No, there's definitely a diversity of solutions in this state. That's one of the things I really like about this state is that, like, I'm forced to respect people that I do not agree with,
I will say, though, why I feel optimistic for some of the stuff Geoff Young is doing is because I do believe in the 6th Congressional District in particular, there are more open-minded people to some more interesting ideas than some of the other districts.
We shall certainly see on that one.
We will see, though. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing, I mean, I heard people, they were very upset that Andy Barr went out there and voted for that money for Ukraine because they don't want to fund whatever's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I've discussed this many times as a sort of Dunning-Kruger issue where, if to the people in the audience, if you could just imagine the Dunning-Kruger graph in your head where you have the people, and they have 90% of the beginning that know nothing, and then you have 9% who are learning, and then you have the 1% who really know.
Right.
And one of the curious things about Dunning-Krugerism and life in general is that when you're looking at a mountain from a distance, you have a pretty good idea how big that mountain is. When you're an expert on mountains, you know how big the mountain is. The people on the mountain are the only people who don't know how big the mountain is. 90% of Kentucky, and I canvassed all this year, 90% of Kentucky does not know what's going on in Ukraine, does not like it, does not want it. They just want their gas prices to go down and groceries to be cheaper. Like, that is most of what people are thinking right now.
Absolutely. And, one thing that doesn't help that, in my opinion, is when you start wars, silly wars that I don't know who will ever win.
We're apparently going up against North Korea today.
Yeah.
North Korea is who we're being belligerent against today.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But remember, this administration. I don't know. Remember, the Democrats were the party of peace, Geoff.
Yeah, were we? Were we?
I don't know.
For a minute, yeah.
It felt like it, but I think that's only because Bush was in office.
Yeah. Were we? Because Carter was probably the most peaceful president of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And he was a Democrat.
Yeah.
And he engaged in some really terrible foreign adventures that ended up rebounding and, blowing up my place of employment on September 11th.
Oh, wow. Was your employment
Yeah, I worked at the World Trade Center.
Wow, that's wild. You never told me that before.
There's just crazy, I mean, not crazy, well, maybe, but like, there's just strange coincidences everywhere. It turns out one of my good friends in Winchester was standing right there when Heather Heyer was killed in Charlottesville.
Wow, that's wild.
There's witnesses to history everywhere. But the point is that Jimmy Carter did fund Osama bin Laden, which is why I did not have a place of employment anymore on September 12th, 2001. These things did connect together. So there's that. He was mostly anti-war and only messed up really bad a few times. Other than that, Obama gave lip service to it. Bill Clinton didn't even really. Yeah. Bill Clinton actually never really prepared.
No, he absolutely was pro-interventionist.
Yeah, the entire time. It suited some of us to pretend that he wasn't, but it never worked. I mean, at least Obama pretended. Obama would let people
all these
believe
speeches,
what they wanted to.
But I guess I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I do believe that the average Kentucky voter doesn't want to be involved in this interventionism we have going in Ukraine.
Yes, I can confirm that. Yeah.
And I think if you believe that, you should, if you're in the 6th District, you should vote for Young, even if you disagree on several other issues, because we need to send a message. We need to send a message. And I think a message was sent in 2016. I think a little bit of a message was sent. And I think another message a message could be sent again. And we should keep sending the message until they get it. Or until at least we get some movement. I'm not even a full idealist where I think tomorrow I'm going to find the right libertarian person and they're going to be president. But I do. Well, I'm absolutely going to send a message to somebody,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge part of politics that people don't get. They concentrate on the score.
Right.
They just want to read the score at the end.
Politics is a weird animal where the score is always up for debate.
Yeah, and much can be accomplished besides just winning and losing.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, winning's nice.
Winning is fun. I mean, it was fun watching that primary day and watching KET not even tell anybody practically that he won. That was pretty funny.
We are in a game of chicken with the Kentucky political establishment to see how long they can pretend there isn't a 6th district congressional race.
It's been wild.
It's fascinating.
I tell my friends from out of state this, they don't believe me. It's like, no, they literally are trying to act like this hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it happened. It absolutely happened. There's a 6th congressional district. There's a Democrat and Republican on the ballot. I mean,
and they don't understand if they're just really, they believe that being quiet, if they're just really quiet, then the bad candidate will just go away, in spite of the fact that has never, ever, ever worked.
It's never worked. No,
never once.
The only thing that I've seen people really do to get rid of an insurgent candidate is really just dig up some absolutely good dirt. And unfortunately for them, they're not going to find hardly anything on Young.
I would be amazed. I would be thrilled to see a human being who lives so much of their life just completely in the open.
Right.
To go, I'm just fascinated by but even that would mean admitting that the race is happening.
Right. So they, I don't know. It's weird, man. It's a weird time we're in.
Yeah. Everybody talks about how weird the election is, but nobody really wants to say why. And that's part of what's so weird about it. Hey, let's play some disclaimers, and I hope everybody out there that's door dashing and driving around is enjoying the show. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
You're listening to WRFL Lexington.
The following program contains views, ideas, and opinions that have been produced by the host DJ and their guests and are not reflective of the views of WRFL or its underwriters. For questions, comments, or concerns, please email programming at wrfl.fm.
Oh, it's that noise. I recognize that noise. It's that noise that when Democracy Now! Starts streaming. All right, let's turn that off. In any case, so where were we? The strangeness of this congressional race, but also... Yeah, honestly, that's all there is left to talk about, because the race in Lexington is more or less done, right?
Yeah, I think Gordon's
gonna... Most people don't even have challengers at this point.
No, our state Senate race in Woodford County, which is part of Lexington too, which they gerrymandered us out of Southward's district. Do you know that story clearly?
No, tell me.
So Cooper Ryder was looking to run in 12 because Fogery, whatever her name was.
Yeah, okay, I know.
She was retiring, so he was looking to run in an open seat. Well, they gerrymandered him out of that so he'd have a primary challenger against Douglas. So now I am out of Southward's district, and the two people who are running, I have a hard time finding information on any of their stances.
Like, gerrymandering is extremely alienating.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to say that the district wasn't gerrymandered before.
Oh, no, but a lot of people were big Southward supporters in my county.
I've noticed that, the word is stochastic.
Right.
But, if you can do something that will just mildly discombobulate people, that seems easy to overcome, like, hey, no big deal, you're just in a new district now, you can knock down turnout 5-10%.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, and I'll be curious to see what happens with that. I'm going to do early voting probably. I found out I can show up at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning before and vote.
That's right. Early voting's almost here. Oh my God, this election's almost over.
Yeah. So I'll probably do that, but I'm slightly disappointed. Because all the other candidates, I've had clerks knock on my door, I've had school board candidates knock on my door, but nobody from the Senate district came by my door.
No, but you know what? The Charles Booker team is out there with the signs. They're doing real well. I mean, I'm seeing Sun for Paul, not as many, but Rand Paul just seems to be assuming the sale.
I would be. There probably isn't a lot to be gained from him running around. I don't know. I don't really know what you do when you start in his position.
Yeah.
Like, because he's not like McConnell, where like the Republican establishment just loves him.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, he's clearly an incumbent with an advantage, supposedly. Right. So, but you're also known as kind of a rogue character. So he's in a very weird place. And
he's sort of cut himself. It seems like he's sort of cut himself off from all his traditional, or not traditional, but like his original supporters. The libertarians and the term limits people are not real pleased with him.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have any good answers for him. I am glad I'm not his campaign manager. I would be terrible. I don't know what I would say.
I will admit, I will accept the judgment of history on this election, and if the Republicans manage to win across the board in spite of the fact of just not debating, I'm going to say, I guess debating is like whistle stops. It was a lot of fun while it lasted, but it's over. Like if Kentucky wants to stand up for the right to debate, that's the other thing, is like there's so many things wrapped up in these elections, and there's real competing interests.
Well, and that's where I'll agree with you, and that's where it's almost kind of, I do feel some melancholy sometimes, Geoff. It's like, you go down, I don't know, we went to, we were driving around celebrating our anniversary last weekend, and, you hear 90s songs come on the radio, and I've sometimes watched 90s TV shows, and I think, I get all nostalgic. I got accused on a podcast of getting way too nostalgic. I'm apparently always nostalgic. But, maybe debates are going to be another one of the things that just die, Geoff, and there'll just be more of a void there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a void, man. You go and you turn on TV, nobody watches the shows anymore,
Yeah, we're all just retreated to our homes.
Yeah.
And, I can't imagine politics without debate.
I don't know what you would do. I mean, I guess in theory, judging by how we built up our Libertarian District Facebook page following, I guess you really just have to troll yourself into existence, Geoff.
Yeah, you have to meme yourself into existence like those good old MAGA communists.
They're gonna do it, man. We're gonna come back and they're gonna have like 10% of the vote in 10 years.
I look for historical antecedents. I mean, I'm really impressed that you know that middle period of presidents better than I do. I don't know anything about Arthur and Garfield, except I think Arthur was going to be a good president, but he got killed. No, Garfield was the one.
Arthur took over for William Henry Harrison.
William Henry Harrison?
Yeah.
William Henry Harrison was 1840, wasn't he?
Yeah. Arthur was Arthur.
Are you sure?
Let me check again. I think Arthur was his vice president.
Anyway, so if we're looking for antecedents, they get a lot of disrespect now. But the Nativist Party, MAGA
they were a big deal.
Reminds me of the Nativist Party.
They were a big deal. I mean, then there was for a while there was the Know Nothing Party.
Well, that was And I mean, but this all came to a boil at the same time. Like the Whigs were turning into the Republicans at the same time that the Nativists came and went, because the Know Nothing Party didn't exist in 1850, captured a bunch of seats in 1852 and 1854, and was gone by 1856.
Arthur was in 1881. He was after Garfield got assassinated.
Yeah, Garfield, and I think Garfield was going to be a good president.
That's what. So I watched this historian YouTube channel called Vlogging Through History, and he's a big fan of Garfield. But it should also be caveated he's originally from Ohio, so he's a little bit biased.
Yeah,
a little bit biased, but. I don't know. He was a big fan. He's I would call that historian, though. He kind of leans through I would call him a moderate Republican sort of lens. Like his number one president is Lincoln, and I'm probably more of I don't like some of the things Lincoln did, with like revoking speedy trials and stuff, which that's sort of here nor there now in hindsight, but like, so he's more of like staunch. So I say this because I think a moderate Republican, like someone who's seen as taking some type of they're okay with some strong armism as long as they think that person is showing some type of morality right?
Not to return to the point, but that sort of power politics was exactly what Karl Marx wrote about in the 1850s. That's 1840s and 1850s. That's what Karl Marx cared about, was the mechanics of parliamentary democracies. The stuff about capital was the 1870s, after the Republicans stopped paying attention. But all that power politics stuff is literally straight out of Marx's playbook. They've always been comfortable with that. Is to Lincoln, I'm a huge fan of Lincoln, even though I'm well aware that he began the final genocide of the First Nation people in this country, for sure.
There's all kinds of for me as a libertarian, obviously, I can scrutinize almost any president, so it's not really.
Well, you've got Lysander Cooper. I talk to people, when people talk about libertarianism, they start saying that they were like, that you all, their picture of your antecedents in the 19th century is confused, to say the least.
Right.
But, okay, so sometimes it feels like it's hard to find things to be proud about with America, right? Like, because the space race is sort of tarnished at this point, like World War II, we did sort of fund the Nazis and then let them kill 23 million Russians and 6 million Jews. But then we stopped it.
Right.
Not feeling as good about it these days. World War I, actually, the only good thing Wilson ever did was keep us out of the war. Okay, so even the American Revolution sort of seeming, like a bunch of rich people ripped off a slave rebellion. But we held an election in the middle of a civil war.
Right, we did, yeah.
That's pretty cool. And we didn't outlaw any parties. The party that I'm part of would have been outlawed.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, very rightfully, honestly.
I mean, there are a lot of things that people like to clown on America for, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with good scrutiny. Yeah. But I do think there are things that we still should be proud of. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is in America, I do feel like most people have a shot every once in a while in a way they don't in other places, especially when talking to my European friends.
We're just in a bad spot as a nation right now, so it's hard to like.
And it's the scary thing though is that it's worse for my European friends. The dollar's now almost as strong as the pound. That's scary, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, what's really, all our friends over there were the Anglophiles. They were the ones going like, oh, America, our friend. They love us. Look at all these great Americans. I went to exchange school in Kentucky. Yeah. Salt of the earth, great people. They probably didn't blow up that pipeline.
I've seen some stuff about that. That would be interesting. Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird time. But yeah, so I agree with you. It's good that we were able to hold an election. We still seem to be able to hold elections, although people are trying to. There are some people that don't like elections, apparently. But
I'm curious where you all fit into this. That is a fundamental difference between the Democrats and the Republican Party. Despite all the imputations of evil and anarchy on both sides, and socialism, the only big difference that I can find between the two is that Democrats have a sort of religious faith in the power of the majority, and Republicans don't.
Yeah.
Democrats think a bigger election is better, and Republicans don't. Democrats go like, they're trying to stop us from voting, and Republicans are like,
yeah, we are kind of essentially.
I wasn't aware that was up for debate. Yeah, that's what it says on the binder we handed you. We are trying to stop you from voting.
I mean, I've even met some people who are in the Republican orbit who are monarchists.
Yeah. I guess that's who. I guess if you're a monarchist, if you're in the barnyard of American politics, and which monarch, like Aaron Burr?
They think that we should revert to a monarchy. That monarchy is a better solution than democracy. It is quite. I'm like, you're gonna have to move. I mean, you do realize this is not that kind of country, right?
No, I don't. That would be. I can see MAGA communism taking the presidency before monarchists. I just don't.
It was a wild one, and of course, I've met some people who want to repeal the right for women to vote too, which is really wild. Some of them who are women, Which that's a wild one too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is a triggering question,
right?
But in your opinion, this is a horrible question.
Oh,
how much does the Dobbs decision resemble the Dred Scott decision, in your opinion?
I mean, it is. It goes back to. It's unfortunate we're getting into this debate where we really want the government to define what rights are, and then we want to use that in a way where we're trying to have states enforce things on other states, and that's when we really get into trouble as a country. And it's happened in history many times, but I can see, obviously I am. I don't know if I'd call myself a staunch pro-lifer, but I'm, I am pro-life. But at the same time, I don't think that it's necessarily what I'm really opposed to is something like what Texas is talking about, where not only have we banned abortion in our state, but we want to criminally prosecute people for doing it other places who are residents. I have a big problem with that. And that's sort of what happened with Dred Scott too, right? Not only was slavery banned in those states, but they wanted them to come in and round up the slaves for them and bring them back to those states, which we can't do that as a country. We got to learn to let some people live and let live more.
In fairness, I think it's worth noting that the for some reason the fugitive slave laws and the Dred Scott decision often get mixed up, and what you're talking about there is the fugitive slave laws.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was not a fair comparison, at least not from your point of view. So I withdraw it. But
but that's essentially where my whole school of thought is on that. Is people, need to let some people live and let live more, and it won't happen because of what the debate's over.
Well, yeah, we're trying to. I mean, the Dobbs decision. You're right. Is in fairness, it reverted to states' rights, right?
Right. But the problem is, and I understand the criticism from liberals with it. I do understand the criticism because we've already seen it play out in Texas, right?
Yeah.
They want to criminalize you going out of the state to get an abortion.
Yeah, and we are not far beyond that here.
I
mean, they've already released draft legislation of a law they're going to write next year. So
I think it's absolutely a valid criticism. Unfortunately, I don't have a good solution for you. Yeah.
Well, it's like, as always, cast aspersions on everyone. In fairness, we had 50 years to transfer the rights enumerated in Roe v. Wade to the legislation.
Right, and that was a fair criticism, too, from sort of activists who've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, it was like eight Democratic supermajorities came and went in that time. Any one of them could have done it. Yeah. And in fairness, they didn't because they wanted to fundraise off of it. Sorry, that's true.
Yeah, so you reap what you sow, Geoff.
Yeah. Well, in our case, we reap what they sowed. I mean, just you brought it up, the absolute wildness of this division inside of MAGA, where MAGA's like, I want to cosplay as the 50s, and they're like, no, cosplay as the 30s.
Yeah.
And they're going to fight over this. This is fantastic.
It's going to be wild. My thing about it is, it's like my friend who's the Catholic socialist I told you about.
Yeah.
I don't see how socially conservative values can line up with some of the tenets of communism, or
I don't feel like I understand communism well enough to say what it is.
Or I should say socialism, or some of those things. Like, for instance, if you're socially conservative, then that in theory, I would think that you believe that men and women have very defined gender roles. Well, how does that line up with everyone's equal and should get equal, money? That don't...
Well, as we are both fathers, we both understand that equality is a legal concept that absolutely does not extend into the physiological realm, especially when the issue of children is involved.
No, and I'm okay with that, but I don't know.
I'm okay with it too.
I don't know if these socially conservative, these extremely socially conservative, staunchly socialist people understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, we've transferred in our, I guess you could say, in our grandparents' lifetime, from a society that was mostly created and held up for the benefit of those who had kids.
Right.
They were just unquestioningly in charge of the world.
Right. And that's what the 50s cosplay people, I think, want to revert back to.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you can go all the way to the 80s. That was still
yeah.
going on when I was a kid.
You know, like Paul Ryan, for instance. I like to use this example. You know, that's exactly what his middle class supposed tax cut was supposedly about. That's supposedly what he all ran on. But now you got these MAGA communists who they're like, nah, man, it's the 1930s. It's the 1930s. We're going to come in here and, you know.
And we're going to organize the workers and yell at them a lot. I've been watching them try to organize workers.
There's already tape of this?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, they're very assiduous. Yeah. I'm not sure how many of them are. You know, it's ridiculous. I would say that MAGA communism is about the same size as NAFO.
Probably. Probably.
Yeah, just, you know, having been extremely online for far too long and just having a sort of like internet sense of how things go. Yeah, I think that that's the case. Oh, my God. And, you know, I'm trying really hard to avoid this topic of self-promotion, but we got a really interesting indirect proof of how separate the internet is from reality.
Oh, how's that?
When Jeff Young put out the Impeach the Sixth, what's the
Flyers?
Flyers, yeah, the postcard, and it went to everybody around here,
right? Yeah,
except for Fayette County. It went to every county in thousands. I think something like 100,000 went out to everywhere but Fayette County.
Yeah,
we received something like 10 volunteer notifications a day. From that on.
Wow.
I mean, from that on. No, the volume kept up for...
That's impressive.
A couple weeks.
Yeah, that's really wild. I wouldn't have
It was
that.
not... The only people that mentioned it on Twitter at all were Trey Watson and another Republican who was describing themselves as a moderate but clearly wasn't. No Democrat mentioned the flyer at all.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. But
that's what's so funny about this, because I watch a lot of to keep, because I'm an open-minded person. That's probably a bad thing to say. No, I watch a lot of like Breaking Points and The Hill and that Rising show on The Hill and like Jimmy Dore and stuff like that. Yeah. That's where I get my understanding of what socialists think instead of NPR now, because, well, NPR is quite troubling. But anyway, you know, when I listen to that stuff, I definitely, it's just so hilarious because you even see it in the comments sections on those things, even though it is the internet. It's just this complete disconnect of like the CNN people and the real people. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. And you want to feel like the divide can be bridged, but can it really?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you would think at some point, like, I remember after 2016, right? Yeah. The New York Times came out like 3 or 4 weeks later and was like, oh, we're sorry, we got it wrong. We didn't talk to enough people in Middle America to know what happened. And yet here we are. They revert to the same things. I think it was not like maybe, I want to say like 2 years later that when they had the, what was her name, Blair Weiss or whatever, debacle where she called Tulsi Gabbard a Assad toady or something.
I missed this.
Oh, so this was Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss.
Assad toady. Okay.
Yeah, Barry Weiss. Like... She was some up and coming.
Yeah, Barry Weiss. I remember her. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was like some up and coming reporter, I guess, for the New York Times at the time, and she went out there and just like hammered Tulsi Gabbard for being like pro-Assad or something. So so she made the mistake then very shortly after that of going on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan just like murdered her on air. It was terrible. Like he made her look like such an amateur, like she didn't know what she was talking about. And now she's starting her own free speech university or something. Like she's like claiming to be reformed now, which is hilarious. But because I have to remind people all the history of how this all went.
Wait, she's reformed in what? Like Reformed Eastern Orthodox, or like she's not?
She's claiming not to be MSM anymore. Like she's claiming to be in with the crowd with everybody else.
Oh, she's cool now. Oh,
yeah,
good.
Yeah. I said to millions of people in a column that somebody who didn't want to go to war with Syria was, basically an asset of their government, but it's cool now, right, guys? Yeah. You know, but anyway.
Do you know that we're currently occupying a third of Syria?
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised about that one bit.
What the heck?
We don't like to let go. Look what happened when we let go a little bit in Afghanistan. Everybody got upset.
I don't think people really understand. You know, the American lack of geographical knowledge is really biting us in the butt here because people don't seem to understand. We can't fight everybody.
Well, you know, I am a geography major, Geoff.
Okay, what percentage of the world's surface do we control?
It's a stupid amount. I know we have bases in like 200 countries.
Yeah, well, yeah. Nobody knows how many bases we have.
Yep.
Nobody knows a lot of this stuff. Nobody knows what the Kentucky National Guard is.
Well, they were. Are they still over there? There were some of them over there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been able to figure out about where there's 7,000 people in the Kentucky National Guard. We've been able to figure out where about 1,200
Remember this, people. The National Guard. Their job is supposed to be defending Kentucky from external threats. And right now they're over in
Somalia and probably Poland.
Because, you know,
Kentucky totally shares a border with Somalia. Everybody knows that. It's
like Somalia's going to come invade us tomorrow if we don't send them there.
Look, gerrymandering, you thought gerrymandering was pretty bad, but no, it's like seriously, Somalia is now the 62nd Kentucky congressional district. I don't it's wrong to laugh at this stuff, but also it's so absurd. What else do you do? Like, I don't understand why it's a stealth draft. I do understand why it's a stealth draft.
I mean, at least they're stealth about it. You know, in Russia now, I guess everybody's joining up.
That's a tragedy.
It's really sad. I mean, I would hate to. I mean, I'll admit it. I got letters from West Point, and I turned them down.
Yeah.
They sent me letters because my grandfather, he fought in the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I was getting those handwritten letters.
Oh.
And I scored really high on that ASVAB.
Uh-huh.
Like it said I should be a general.
Well, it's not too late.
I was like, no, don't want any part of this.
Me.
Not for me. I would question authority way too much.
Yeah, I know way too many veterans to ever really think that it works out well.
Oh yeah, tons of veteran friends. Yeah. I love veterans. I love regular foot soldiers.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
I just like
happened.
people in general.
Yeah,
and honestly, I am not terribly sad about paying for veterans' health care for the rest of their lives. You know,
no, that's one thing that I don't think I would go after right away. No, that's something that we kind of owe people. You know?
Well, I'm a big fan of you know me. I'm a sort of an EBI guy. I definitely think everybody should get health care and some sort of basic needs of life. I'm a PG. I was very influenced by P.G. O'Rourke, which is why I'm so sad that no living libertarian appears to have ever heard of him.
Unfortunately, stuff does get clouded sometimes. We read way too much, Geoff. We're at the point where
you all are still reading the guy that wrote the Lando Calrissian books.
Unfortunately, I would say about our movement, and I don't think it's exclusive to our movement, but ours may be the worst one about it. You're talking about the zoo effect. I mean, it is like a zoo effect.
Yeah.
I mean, you get somebody coming to me and say, "Oh, I read this, I read that," and I'll just be like, "Let's just hold up here. Let's just focus on the basics." For an election here, for campaign, for even trolling, you know, like, hey, why don't we just I love what Spike Cohen does with trolling the ATF. That's a very simple
that's good
thing.
Shtick. I enjoy
it.
You
know, that's not trying to browbeat people with 20 scholars, you know.
Yeah, honestly, it's just borrowing a platform and using it for good because So, no matter where you are on gun control, the ATF is not doing a good job. I mean, I lived in Texas when they kept setting off. They kept trying to destroy seized ammunition during a drought. They started a huge fire. This happened more than once. Anyway, so trolling the ATF is fantastic. I'm sure that's part of the dialectic. But yeah, you're right. I think between the libertarians and the socialists, I don't know which group is more likely to tell you to read some book that you're absolutely not going to read.
I don't know. We got to be up there. I think there's probably some socialists that might not do it still, but it definitely a libertarian would tell you to read a book.
Oh, they love their reading lists.
That's true.
They hate Malthus now?
They hate Malthus?
Yeah, this is where the LaRouche... Okay, so who knew in the year 2022 we would still be thinking about Lyndon LaRouche? So apparently Lyndon LaRouche was very against something he called green fascism.
Green fascism?
Yes, and something about Malthusianism. But I've read Malthus. It bears no relation to the Malthus I've read. But
well,
that's all right.
I'm actually glad you brought that up because I did a podcast episode. I did have a geography-based podcast, and I had on a couple of Australian friends, and we were we dug a little bit. We were debating a little bit about environmentalism stuff.
Yeah.
And I brought up Malthusian theory. And I said, well, do you believe there's a carrying capacity to the world?
Yeah.
It's a simple question. And somebody came in our comments section and just absolutely railed on it, which I was shocked. I was like, I thought this, because when I was in school, that was considered like, pretty standard, reading on environmentalism. And
yeah, I mean, I sure do. I don't see any way the Earth can handle another trillion people.
Right, and then the question becomes, what do you do about that if you believe that, right? That's basically the simple thing there. But it was hilarious because you're talking about this guy. This guy actually ended up blocking me on the internet, which is crazy because I actually get blocked very, very sparingly, and I don't block anybody typically. I've only blocked one person my whole life. But there's this person I found out from some other people is like a Jewish person living in Toronto, and they're like a staunchly pro-German government person. Like they love the Merkel faction of the German government.
People are so weird.
And so apparently they also read a bunch of socialist stuff that hates Malthus, and that's like a hip and trendy thing.
Wait. So your anti-Malthusian friend is pro-German government?
Oh, yeah. He would always be like, Germany is great. It's so much better than all the other Western countries. And
I wonder how he's feeling right now.
I don't know. I wonder.
Oh, because you had to block him. Yeah.
Well, no, he blocked me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he got mad at me because I pointed out, I sent an article where I pointed out that the New York Times had to retract their story about the infants being murdered in Kuwait in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
I pointed out they had to retract this because we were getting in a fight because he was definitely pro-interventionism too.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, man, this is exactly why I'm anti-interventionism. They came out and admitted that this was not the fact. It was not happening.
Yeah.
There was no Saddam soldiers murdering babies in Kuwait. It was not happening. And he was like, and immediately after I sent him that article, he blocked me. It was like, well, you can't handle the truth?
You did win the argument, but now you're denied the ability to find out what a social social Catholic Malthusian.
Well, this is a different guy than my socialist Catholic friend. This is a Jewish guy.
Oh, this is the Jewish Canadian anti-Malthusian pro-German.
Yeah.
As I understand it, we are not popular in Germany right now.
Who, America? Oh, no.
Yeah.
We haven't been for a while.
That makes me really sad, because I know German, and I have a lot of German friends.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah, I work for a German company.
But it's just, to be fair, I think our historical tracks have always been a bit different than each other anyway. But I also get a little bit too concerned when I see America is getting too cozy with the UK. Like, I think that makes me a little concerned.
Thing. I was like, Daniel Boone lost a battle, so I didn't have to pay attention to this.
Right. Well, even with the I get in trouble for this. It's kind of a joke, but kind of not. But like Harry and Meghan Markle, like if they had a kid, we shouldn't let it run for president. That'd be a problem. Like,
huh.
That'd be a little bit undue influence, in my opinion. But it's, and again, maybe I'm joking, maybe not. And I know they've claimed they don't want to be involved in the royal family stuff.
Yeah,
but
claim. Yeah.
But it's still kind of weird. Like, that would be unsettling to me. That would make me nervous.
They specifically disinherited Andrew, and he's already the regent.
Right.
So, they claim things.
Yeah, so that's sort of my thing. I don't like being that cozy with the UK. It makes me nervous.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
And, this mostly comes from history because I've studied the nativists and stuff like that. But I think, what would the nativists think if we could tell them that the president and 7 of the 9 members of the Supreme Court are Catholic?
They would be very, very upset. Yes.
Yeah, they really would.
I have to say, I mean, kudos to our country for finally moving on from the Catholic question. But, it is kind of crazy. Like, a lot of people didn't know JFK was going to win because of that. Like, that was still a problem.
Yeah, that was a really serious issue. Also, we lost Roe v. Wade.
So
I'm sure it's a coincidence. I'm sure there can be no connection whatsoever.
Between the Catholics and the...
But it's still, nevertheless, weird.
Yeah.
I have a hard time explaining that one to my inner historian. Well, I mean, it's like... Can you imagine getting somebody getting a hardcore communist from 100 years ago who was all about like Rosa Luxemburg and organizing the working class, and then bringing them forward and showing them these kids that are dressing up like them?
Oh, they would be so confused.
They would be confused, but I think they'd be they'd actually be a little happy.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it is making a comeback. Like I said, I've never seen. I am, because I still, and you probably still too. I mean, I'm a little younger than you, I guess.
Yeah.
I was born in 89. But I remember pre 9/11, like a very 90s version of America. And if you had told me that we'd have MAGA communists now, I probably wouldn't have believed you.
I'm still not sure I believe you.
Because, like, my 90s version of America is like every once in a while you see a socialists, and they kind of disappear almost into the void. Like, there was a great, I used to, do you remember the comic strip Bloom County?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, there was a great one I remember from when I was a kid where he did, it was during the Reagan era, but it was the Vanishing Liberal, and it was like, call out Village Voice. Oh, there it is. Yeah. And so it is wild that now we see this resurgence, but I guess that just goes to show you that American politics really is cyclical. Like, it always happens. People always come back. All these factions are always still there.
Nothing stays dead.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something. So, forgive me if I'm repeating my own Twitter here.
Oh, we're good.
But Woody Guthrie was born in 1912.
Right.
Woody Guthrie had written on his guitar, "This machine kills fascists." In 1941, minus 1912 is 29. Woody Guthrie had every opportunity to go kill actual fascists because he was 29 years old when America entered World War II. He had machines that killed fascists everywhere around his house. He could get on a machine that killed fascists and fly to a country where they were killing fascists and pick up a different machine and kill some actual fascists. In fact, the people around him were being trained into machines to kill fascists. So really, if you wanted to pick one thing around Woody Guthrie's house that didn't kill fascists,
it was his guitar.
Right? But maybe the guitar is how you make them stay dead. Maybe art and culture is the way out of this. I don't know. I can't really believe.
Well, I do think. There's that famous Andrew Breitbart quote that says, "Politics is downstream from culture." Right. So, and regardless of what you think of the man, it is kind of true. Yeah. Because we saw early. The reason why we got MAGA communists now, apparently, is because there has been a lot of talk and rhetoric around, sort of new inequality that, I would argue has always existed, but other people think that it's new and different, and that's where we are. So, I do think it's a cultural thing.
The millennials did give a hard reset to American politics, even if you don't agree with everything that happened, and I sure don't. They definitely caused a serious recombobulation. And I mean, the kids are all right. Like, I like Zoomers. They are all over the place.
Zoomers are hilarious.
Yeah,
the younger crowd than me. I'm 33. In case no one else picked that up, they are hilarious. I have a couple that I'm just like friends with, and I just follow to see what hilarious stuff they're gonna do next.
Yeah, they're great. And they're living in the future.
By the way, if there are any Zoomers on the radio who are attending the university, and you want to find out more about the Libertarian Party, we will be having our campus meetup on the 20th. It is the third Thursday of every month, across the street from the studios here at the Cornerstone new campus corner thing with the giant shining illuminated light at the corner of Limestone and Winslow.
That was an excellent segue.
I'm a pro. I was always told I have a face for radio.
Speaking of segues.
This portion of WRFL's programming is made possible in part by CD Central. CD Central primarily offers a selection of new and used vinyl, turntables, CDs, and accessories. More information can be found at cdcentralmusic.com. WRFL thanks CD Central for supporting college radio.
When you're talking to me, if you're jumping to my minivan, I headed out across the land, the rain and hail, the sleet and snow. I had to find my baby. There's something that she should know. Oh, now. Woo. Yeah. Oh. I'm a drove all day, and I'm a drove all night, and I drove all day, and I drove all night, 'cause I had to find my baby, and I had to do her right. Yes, I had to find my baby, and I had to do her right. Ooh, I had to do her right. Jumped into my minivan, headed out across the land. This is what I had to tell my baby. This is what I had to tell my baby. I love you, baby, in the house of a car. I love you, baby, wherever you are. I will strum you, baby. I will strum you, baby. I will strum you, baby, like a red guitar.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Radio Free Eskippakithiki. We're covering for Trivial Thursdays today and making them seem really good by comparison. I bet everybody's going to be so glad when they get back. So I was wondering if we were brave enough to tackle the subject of Ukraine, especially since we only have about 10 minutes left to talk.
Hey, we can try.
But something came up today that I think is maybe worth discussing on this, because it's one of those cases where both parties are wrong and both parties are right. Have you heard that they are evacuating the school children from Kherson and moving them to Crimea?
Oh, really?
Yes.
So are these school children, I suppose we don't really know how many would have stayed or
Yeah.
part of families that are Ukrainian and part of families that are Russian sympathizers.
At this point, I think it would be terrible to even speculate because there's
Yeah.
just no way to know. It's a nation at war.
Right.
So people are talking about Article 2 of, I believe, the UN Charter on war crimes, and they're absolutely right. Forced transportation of children to foreign schools is indeed genocide.
Yeah.
One of the major hallmarks thereof.
You know, this is exactly the nastiness that, you know, again, we are propping up, and we're propping it up really, I don't even think out of any type of self-interest, other than I do think we are probably covering up some things that happened with both, I guess, the Trump families and the Biden families, if we look into that some more. But apparently, I mean, we're getting involved in this because Europe wants us involved in this, and this should really be their problem. They started it, they should fix it.
I think at this point, Poland's the only people that really want us involved. But, okay, so people are calling this genocide, and it certainly has
I mean, if we're going by legal definitions, the problem is, of course, what international court will recognize.
Well, let's just flip it around from the other point of view for a second, though. The Russians have been claiming, in some cases, vindicated, that the Ukrainians have been using human shields.
I'm most certain that I'm fairly certain they probably did.
And so from the Russian point of view, if the people they leave behind when places are taken are killed, and since the investigation into Bucha was blocked, we don't really know what happened there, although Italian television finding the Ukrainian commander who admitted to killing them probably should matter, but I understand not everybody's going to accept that.
Yeah.
But we do have to accept that the Russians believe themselves. Even if you don't believe the Russians, the Russians believe themselves. So the Russians believe that if they leave people behind, they will be killed. Right. And the Russians believe that Kherson is going to be a crater very soon, possibly radioactive. So is moving children out of a war zone a war crime?
Well, and that's the problem with that's where I got into trouble one time when I was working the late shift at a grocery store for this. Yeah. But I said, somebody called in and complained afterward to the manager. But I basically said, who decides what is a war crime? Who decides? Who's the international court that's going to recognize this, and why do they have the authority?
Yeah. Usually the winner gets to decide.
The winner gets to decide, and it's unfortunate, really, because people, all sorts of groups of people, and this, when I talked about that was in reference to the Serbian general that had killed himself before being tried at the International Criminal Court.
Oh, yeah, the one who said, I don't respect this court's authority?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Right, who was a Serb-Croat general, I believe.
Yeah, so. I mean, in order to, well, and I think this is where I part ways with the Malthusians, is that in a world with this much technology, a few people can do an enormous amount of harm. And it's just super hard to imagine that they will be naturally taken care of by this patchwork of states.
Yeah.
One sort of wants a larger authority, but then that larger authority tends to become truly corrupt.
Yeah, so, I mean, and so when we're going back to this, it's the problem we got. If we start coming in there and recognizing this as such, we'll probably end up with the same problem we had in Syria, where we tried to assign to the Syrian government a gas attack that we're still not certain they were involved in.
I probably shouldn't repeat this, but I have, we're friends with some fairly heavy reporters, and I have been informed that the Syrian nerve gas was ours. That was from Kentucky. That was from the Bluegrass Army Depot.
That's fun.
Yeah,
that is very fun.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing to know, isn't it?
Yeah. It sucks. I mean, it just sucks. It sucks that they have to evacuate the children. It sucks that people are going to call it whatever, and then I'm sure they'll try and throw some more sanctions on there, and then it's so pointless, Jeff. It gets to the point of pointlessness and silliness. But
but people are dying. And...
But I mean, I've read a lot of stories from the World War I and World War II era. Like, I'm a big fan of the novelist Eric Maria Remarque.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. I've read most of his stories.
Really, I've only read the one.
Yeah,
That's cool.
He's got tons of other ones. Well, he was kicked out of Nazi Germany, even though he was a school teacher and a World War I veteran. because of his writings. So
They're like, you'll never work in Nazi Germany again.
I mean, that's essentially what they did. Even some of his stories are about his life after that. But anyway, he's got plenty of fictional stories about this time period, and it's crazy. Like you can't believe that this stuff is happening. Like but it all happened to him. Like most of that happened to him. You know?
Yeah. No, I think it's true. I was thinking about Donald Trump once, and I was like, you know what? I bet all those weird people that Charles Dickens and William Shakespeare wrote about were totally real and even weirder than that. And William was just in the back of the tavern like, oh, talk slower. I can't get this all down.
So I don't really know. The problem is now we're so far into this, there's no way out of it. Like we're going to be tarnished with whatever from it, and there's no way to really play neutral party here.
I can't imagine. Somehow it would be worse if we escaped punishment for this. I would feel like we'd be a nation of just George Zimmermans and the woman who reported Emmett Till, just like walking around wishing that there was a power strong enough to give us what we deserve. Because I think most people know that we have not been the good guys in this.
Right.
You know, we're not exactly, we didn't just wander in. This war didn't start in February.
Right.
They're pretty aware of us already, you know? So I have little kids, and I don't want America to get what it deserves.
Well, I don't know if we'll ever really get quote unquote what we deserve, but the issue I really have is it boils down to accountability, right?
Yeah.
And we never seem to get much accountability, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing we got to accountability was, I guess, some people got ostracized after decisions they made with Vietnam. But not even Kissinger. Like
Kissinger's been around so long that he's actually started to be right about things again, which is very upsetting for me.
But you know, that's where we are, Jeff. It's unfortunate. I mean, I would hope that more people wake up. You know, the sign that Young is even on a primary winner shows to me some people are waking up. You know?
Well, and you mentioned the melancholy before, and it's there and it's real, and I respect that. Like, people who are used to having a candidate who says what they want them to say don't have that right now.
Right.
And they're used to that. And I was upset the first few years that I didn't have anybody that represented me. It's an upsetting experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what we learned in Madison County was, you know, Democrats really want someone like Charles Booker. They want someone who gives good speeches and says what you're supposed to say. And
right. I mean, that's essentially what Obama did, too.
Yeah. And that's really what they want.
Right.
And they've always had it before. How can you blame them for being upset when they don't get what they want anymore? I mean, if you are a standard Democrat, you do not have any good options in this election. You either vote for someone that you disagree with, or you let someone infinitely. It's so funny that we've presented Kentucky with a lesser of two evils election, like a parody of a lesser of two evils election.
Well, libertarians pretty used to being in that boat, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, we're not evil at all. We're trying to stop World War III. But the fact that it's being presented as evil is just fascinating. It's the only way people can learn to deal with it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I guess I'll remain. I guess I will. Hopefully, the thing is I have thought for a while. You know, when will America finally suffer consequences? And I thought it was kind of sort of coming. But you look at the rest of the world, and I think you think we're unstable, I mean,
imagine being a Ukrainian refugee who got taken to Germany.
Yeah.
And it's the middle of October right now. Like, things could be a whole lot worse, and things are plenty bad.
Well, and
here.
even the UK, they ousted another prime minister mid-regime again.
What, is Truss gone already?
No, I'm just saying they did, what's her name before Boris? Oh, gosh. What was her name? Took over.
Daniel Boone lost the battle, so I wouldn't have to pay attention.
after Cameron.
Oh... Dang it.
Yeah, I don't know why her name is escaping me. That shows how much I care. No, but that's what I'm saying. That's crazy. Like they're ousting prime ministers, and somebody's going to point the finger at us and say we're the unstable country. I mean, it's laughable.
Yeah. I mean, it's just sad that all this is happening and we didn't help. Like, the world wants America to get our leadership under control so bad.
Well, that is the unfortunate thing, and that's the thing I do when I talk to my international friends. I always have to say to them, you know, as an American, I feel like everybody's always reaching out to me for help all the time. But then whenever America helps, they get mad. Yeah, so
yeah. Well, I mean, I honestly think that goes back to World War I, and I mean, we're talking about historical patterns. I think that we are in the same position as Germany at the beginning of World War I, right now, and that has to do with ancient unhealed international traumas because America taking side. You know, in order to get us to take sides in World War I, Europe sort of had to mess with their own head pretty hard.
Oh yeah, I mean that Zimmerman note, you know.
Yeah, yeah, the Zimmerman. I just read a whole book about the Zimmerman telegram.
Yeah.
Let me tell. That's actually why I think there's so much relationship between us and Germany at the beginning of World War I, because we are not joking about being belligerent. We do our war planning on the front page of the newspaper. Right. And we just go around assuming that everybody will forgive us and that we have all these allies. Right. And I'm pretty sure we just invaded Belgium.
Yep.
You know, the Germans never thought that America would turn against them. Yeah. And the English and the French sort of made themselves craven in order to get America to join them. Yeah, you know, it was a lose-lose situation. You know, because obviously Germany lost worst of anybody in World War I, sure, but like France and England and the other ones sort of like had to give a part of their spirit, right? And it's all gone bad, and it's coming back, and now we're in that German position of the 100-year-old German position, German position of like, we are exceptional, we can do no wrong, we are the decider, we are the great actors of history. We invade this, we invade that. It's no problem. Nobody will ever stop us. Nobody stopped us before. Why would they stop us now? I mean, that's what we did in Ukraine was in no way unusual.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
We've just been doing that over and over and over again. I mean, it's pure coincidence that we actually happened to find actual Nazis to arm for once. We've armed people worse than Nazis.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this... To be fair, this is mild compared to some of the people we've armed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the world's biggest expert on Vietnam, but I think the DM regime was probably worse than the Zelensky regime. Yeah. Sure, yeah, they're probably awful people. Pol Pot, what have you. Yeah. Oh, next show.
Oh, finally, we got somebody coming in here.
Well, I suppose we have had our say. Thank you so much for joining us on Covering for Trivial Tuesday. This has been Radio Free Eskippakithiki. Absolutely making the other show sound better by comparison. And thanks so much to Charles Julian Altendorf,
Libertarian Party of Kentucky,
current District 6 chair.
Current District 6 chair, possibly changing roles. Stay tuned.
Yeah, that'll be different after tonight. And I will leave you with a cool song by the Mountain Goats because, you know, they're pretty cool. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, y'all.
Water dripping from the pipes down in the basement. Bare feet on a concrete floor. Notches on the wall of my solitary cell. Sweat dripping out of every pore. It feels like it takes forever. It's maybe 5 minutes on screen. But the horns will swell and the strings will sound when that flipped quarter hits the ground. I'm doing this for revenge. I'm doing this to try and stay true. I'm doing this for the ones they had to leave behind. I'm doing this for you. Of the morning, sweat blood when the sun comes through. thick mist on the pond before the temple, headed down for the final rendezvous. Everybody ready for justice, just another mile to go. But the strings will keen and the horns will cry when it's just me against the sky. I'm doing this for revenge. I'm doing this to try and stay true. I'm doing this for the ones they left a twist in the wind. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at WRFL, Lexington. The frequency is a cool 88.1 megahertz with winds coming in all the way to the left. The in-flight entertainment for this journey has been provided by Radio Free Lexington, your only alternative left. For your safety and comfort, please stay tuned with your seatbelts fastened until the plane comes to a complete stop. Please check around your seat for any commercial radio trash you may have brought on board with you and deposit it in the bin as you disembark from the aircraft. On behalf of RFL Airlines and the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for joining us on this trip, and we are looking forward to seeing you tuned in again soon.